Welcome back, guys. We are here for another set review. We have Yanks on the call, and we are going to be going over every single Eldraine card and giving them a rating from 1 to 5 for limited. But before we do that, our first video is an introduction to Wilds of Eldraine. We're going to be going over all of the new set mechanics, and returning mechanics, as well as the different archetypes that you guys can find in draft. We'll discuss a little bit about which ones we think will be the most powerful and so on. Make sure you guys let us know down below in the comments what you guys think of the new set when we are all done. Welcome back, Yanks.
Good to be here.
All right, let's go ahead and just jump straight in with our new 2 Eldraine mechanics. And the first one is Bargain, which we're going to see on Archon's Glory. It says Bargain. You may sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as you cast this spell. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If it was bargained, that creature also gets flying and lifelink until end of turn. So this is sort of like a play on like a Rumpelstiltskin thing, right? Like you have to give something and you get a little something, which is kind of cute. You've looked at the set a little bit more in depth than I have. Is Bargain always these things and it gives you an additional effect, or is it used in other ways?
So it's always, you always sacrifice one of those 3 things for Bargain. Generally, the bargain effects are either you get a second thing or you increase the value of it. So I believe there's a burn spell that deals 2, and if you bargain it, it deals 3. Something like that.
So you're really looking for some cheap, very, very cheap things to sacrifice, because it doesn't look like the benefits from what I've seen on the handful of cards with bargain that I've read through have massive, like double and triple abilities. So it's just like giving a little something. So we definitely are going to be wanting to be sacrificing, like food tokens would be a premium in the set for this. Maybe some 1/1s, but beyond that, not unless this flying is getting you a lethal attack.
Yeah, what this tells me looking at this is that there's a lot of tokens and artifacts and enchantments, and we know that from some of the other new and returning mechanics that we're going to see.
Yeah.
Alan kind of beat me to it. The bargain is basically, it's kicker, right? And the running joke, everything is kicker, but
yeah,
bargain's basically a kicker cost.
There's only so many ways you can write these cards without it, essentially being do an extra thing, which is just what kicker is, and it's just written in a different form. Enchantments, I feel like in general, I'm a lot less likely to want to be sacrificing those, because it's a full card, and most of these cards do not give you a full card's worth of value when you do the sacrifice mechanic. Certainly not at common or uncommon, but I think food tokens will be the great one for this mechanic.
Food, and spoiler alert, skipping ahead, we do have enchantment tokens in this set.
Yeah, but is it like a card that just makes that? Or is there can you keep pooping them out? Oh, I do know which ones you're talking about. I forget that those are actual straight up enchantments.
I mean, they're also tokens, so it works in both cases for this, but...
Yeah, I genuinely forgot that those counted as enchantments. Yeah. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to our second of 3 of the new mechanics for Wilds of Eldraine, and that is Celebration. So we have Belligerent of the Ball. Yanks, you want to tell us a little bit about Celebration?
So Celebration's an ability word, and basically what it means is that the card has some sort of effect on it that will trigger or occur if 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield under your control that turn. Mm-hmm. And generally they don't say other, so if it's a relevant one, I mean, this doesn't have haste, but this would count itself, for example, for Celebration. It is always 2 or more non-land permanents, like that requirement is static, but what the effect is will differ card to card.
So this one specifically says if 2 or more entered the battlefield under your control this turn, including itself, target creature you control gains +1/+0 and gains menace until end of turn. So you could play this and then play like a pre-combat combat trick or something, or just this and 2 creatures or something along those lines, and you actually get a little extra value. This one pretty low impact overall for we usually see on play 2 spells, draw a card, or something a little bit more impactful than +1/+0 and menace. But it is nice to just be stapled onto what is already a solid creature.
I think this is going to be somewhat easier to trigger than we might think, given the enchantment tokens we're going to see next. Also food tokens, right? A lot of times you have a creature that creates a food token with it, and that's 2 permanents right there.
Yeah, so permanents entering the battlefield doesn't necessarily mean they're full pieces of cardboard that come into play. You're right. Like, what if you just have, there was a giant spell in the last Eldraine that just made 3 food tokens.
Yeah. Yep.
So, Or you might have like a, I don't know why I always want to say specific card names because I know I don't know any of the names of the card. It's a 1/2 white creature for 1 that makes a clue token.
Thraben Inspector.
Thraben Inspector type abilities, those would be really cool to get these sorts of decks to be really like triggering very easily as well.
Yep. Plus, this card is just fun because we had Belle of the Brawl in a previous set, and now we have Belligerent of the Ball, a different pun.
Okay, now we have our third mechanic, and that is going to be the new roll mechanic. So some cards are going to allow you to create a roll token. So for example, this card, Curse of the Werefox, says create a monster roll token attached to target creature you control. When you do, that creature fights up to 1 other creature. So the fighting is sort of like independent of this ability, like, because that's stapled onto the card, but the roll itself actually does do something. And now there are 6 different rolls that you guys can unlock in Sealed and in Draft. And then there is another 7th roll that you will see here in just a second that we will include in this video just because it's on the same cards, but it is not available for you guys in Limited. So this one is create a monster token, and then this says enchant creature gets +1/+1 and trample. It's interesting that this is actually an enchantment, stays on the creature. It's actually can be like disenchanted. If you bounce a creature, this will fall off. Anything you want to add about the mechanic here for this before I go over all of them, Yanks?
Yeah, so a few rules on roll tokens. Creatures can only have 1 roll on them controlled by each player at a time. So there can be 2 total in a limited match, 1 from each player. If you have one of your own rolls on a creature and you want to attach a new one, the new one takes precedent and the old one falls off.
Okay, you don't get to choose to order them. So for example, like when a creature says when this attacks, put a roll onto another creature. If you only have 1 other creature, you can't choose to keep the old roll. You have to do it.
Yeah, assuming the card doesn't say up to 1, then yeah.
Interesting.
Yep, the new one replaces it. So they are enchantments, end tokens. When they fall off, they will do the normal token thing where they will go to the graveyard and then disappear. So anything that triggers on permanents going to the graveyard will trigger by this. Yeah. The other kind of interesting thing is this is kind of just a subset of rules with auras, but will probably come up a lot, is a decent number of cards, like the one we just saw, Curse of the Werefox, says create a token attached to target creature. So in that case, if it says you have to target the creature, but there could be other times where if it just says to attach an aura, you can attach something to something with Shroud or an opponent's creature with hexproof if it doesn't say target on the card.
Maybe not going to be super relevant in Limited specifically, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and go over the other different types of roles you can equip. You can equip the role of a sorcerer. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 and has when this creature attacks, scry 1. These are going to be a little tough for me to read upside down. And then we've got the role of royal. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 and has a ward 1. We have the role of young hero. Whenever this creature attacks, if its toughness is 3 or less, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it's a good way to amp up all of your like tokens and little puny dudes. We did sorcerer, and then we're going to go over virtuous, which is the one that you cannot unlock in Limited, but you can in the commander precon stuffs. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control. That's going to be really good for you enchantment commander players. I'm excited about it. Now we've got wicked. Enchant creature gets +1/+1. When this aura is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses a life. So that's what Yanks was saying, that the tokens do indeed go to the graveyard. And the last one is cursed. Enchant creature has base power and toughness 1/1. So this is an aura you're actually actively wanting to put onto your opponent's creatures, which is an interesting mechanic.
Yeah, they're all positive rolls for your creatures except for cursed.
Yes, which is very flavorful, and I like the idea of like wicked and cursed, and I like the flavor of like a witch character being able to put curses onto things. I don't know. I'm really excited about this. I don't care what anybody else says.
Yep, and I really appreciate. I'm sure they did this intentionally, but the way these all work, there's no concern with timestamps or anything like that because the only negative one with cursed is just says base power and toughness 1/1, so it still gets the modifiers from the other ones on it.
Yeah. I like that these are upside down as opposed to giving us 7 different tokens. They actually just gave us, the 4 essentially, and you just put it in the direction, you orient it based on whichever curse you're putting on or
Yep.
whatever roll. So that's really nice. All right, let's go ahead and keep it moving. We're going to go over returning mechanics now. So these are things that you guys have seen in previous sets, but are not evergreen, so they don't come up super often. So if you guys are just coming back to the game or are very new, then these will be super important for you guys, but a lot of you should be familiar with them. And in our last Eldraine set, we did see the new mechanic, which was Adventure, and that is back. So we have the Flocking Familiar. I put this on here because it's the cutest art in the history of ever. I'm so excited. Look at his little hat. I love him so much. I want one. He does look ferocious as hell, though. Otter Wizard is the best. Okay, so the way Adventure works, guys, is it is a secondary spell sort of stapled onto what is typically a creature. In the past has only been creatures, and you'll see in this set is actually a little different. They have them on some other permanents as well. But this one is Blow Off Steam. You'll see it on the left-hand side. And you can cast it 1 mana at instant speed. Blow Off Steam deals 1 damage to any target. Now, you don't have to cast this first. You can just play the creature if you have no good target for the 1 damage, or if you just want to be mana efficient and play your 3-drop spell. But the way it works is if you were to cast it for its adventure spell first, your creature goes on an adventure, and it goes into sort of an exiled pile on the corner of your playmat. Your opponents can see that it is face up, and then you are allowed to then play the creature after the fact. So unlike double side spells where you have to pick one kind of deal, this one you can do both. But once the creature is out, you can no longer cast the instant speed spell or any of the spells for the adventure.
Yeah. The only other kind of rules twist to adventure cards is that this card is a 2 and a blue 2/2 at all times in the game, except if Blow Off Steam is on the stack. So, like, if you have a card that lets you if this is in the graveyard, you can't get it back with the card that gets instant or sorcery back from the graveyard. It's a creature in the graveyard, it's a creature in your hand, it's a creature in the library, and creature on the stack unless you're playing Blow Off Steam, at which point it's a red instant on the stack.
Yes, this would be really relevant for, like you said, cards that get back spells or creatures. This only gets back creatures. Also, there are stuff that say, like look at opponent's hand, get a non-creature spell from it, which is very, very common for like those Thoughtseize type mechanic cards that you see in limited a lot. They usually, it's getting a little less common, but they usually don't hit creatures. So this would be a good way to sort of get around some of those.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, moving on. This is the same mechanic, but we wanted to sort of bring attention to the fact that this is the very first time we are seeing this on a non-creature. This is on an enchantment. It is only a cycle of, I believe, 5 mythics. So these are the virtue enchantments. And again, it's just the same sort of thing where you can just play this for 5 and you get the right-hand side of the card, or you can first play it for 2 and you get the additional 2/2 Knight with Vigilance. It's kind of nice that this is an instant speed spell. A 2/2 Knight at instant speed for 2 is pretty sweet. This card seems good.
Yeah, I will bring up, just because comments will otherwise, and we talked about this beforehand, and I was wrong, forgetting that Battle for Baldur's Gate had these on artifacts.
Oh, did it?
This is the first time they're on enchantments. It's brand new, but Battle for Baldur's Gate had them on a few artifacts.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I cannot think of anything.
It shows the impact that set made on everything, that nobody remembers that.
Yeah. That's true. Oh, I remember Altar. Someone in chat is Altar of Ball. I do remember that actually now. You're right. Okay, cool. Yeah, you're right. It didn't make an impact, and I don't think about those cards at all.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to returning mechanics. We're starting to see these more and more. It was originally from Dominaria, and I love it. I think Sagas are fantastic sort of set design cards, so I'm glad to see them back. So the way Sagas work here, guys, is they are typically, unless they have the ability called Read Ahead, which is not in this set as far as I know, they come in, and you typically have 3 chapters. You come in, you immediately get chapter 1. In this case, you're going to exile a target creature. And then on the beginning of your next main phase, you go to chapter 2 and your next turn's main phase, and so on. So chapter 1, 2, and 3, you're going to get value for all of them. There is a tricky mechanic about reading ahead. It allows you to skip chapters and just go to chapter 2 or 3 if for whatever reason you need to. But again, I don't believe that's in this set.
It's not.
Sagas can be enchanted. The disenchanted, they can be removed from the game. They can be returned from the graveyard with some cool stuff. I don't know about this set, but just in general, like, these are a great way for you to get a lot of value over time. So big fan of these.
Yeah, it's a perfect fit for Eldraine too, right? Like, these first came out in Dominaria, which was to tell the history of the plane, and it was using it to tell those stories. But Sagas as stories is perfect for a fairy tale set.
So flavorful, and I love flavor. Moving on, we've got, this is actually an adventure card, but we just grabbed it to show you guys the returning mechanic of food. This is the first set that we saw food, so not surprised that we're going to see them again. We did see them with Lord of the Rings and a few other sets, so this is becoming more and more common. I need to make sure I remember to pack extra food tokens for our next event, because those will probably sell out. I got some cute hammy foods. So yeah, the adventure side of this is just create a food token. And why would you want to do that? A lot of cards interact with them. They sacrifice food or eat them to do things, but you also can just sacrifice them to gain life and sort of win races. So pretty neat mechanic. I'm excited to see it back.
Yeah, and that's a great kind of, just looking at how some themes and mechanics cross. That adventure is great for someone trying to trigger celebration, right? Because maybe you've played a creature with celebration, and then only 1 more mana makes it permanent.
Yep. So yeah, you're right. For 4 mana, you get a food and a 3/2 wolf.
Yep.
Both of those things are fine rates on their own, and then you get to exactly trigger all your celebrations, which is a nice little bonus. Okay, moving on to our last returning mechanic. This is a lot less common, and we haven't really seen this in a long time, but we're going to talk about Skulk, which is an ability that some creatures have. It can't be blocked by creatures with power that is greater than their power. So in this situation, can't be blocked by basically anything that's not a 0-powered creature. And then a lot of times what will happen is it will get, buffed or combat tricked or something along those lines. Or you can usually dump mana into pumping them, which is cool. Interesting mechanic, but we don't see it very often.
Yeah, I think this came out in Shadows of Innistrad. We saw it in that block with Eldritch Moon. I think it showed up in Battle for Baldur's Gate. But other than that, this is the only time we're seeing it. And I believe this is the only card in the set with it. For people that played Lord of the Rings set, it's basically the first ability on the ring tempts you. Like, it's the same as the first time ring tempts you, and going forward. This time they just decided to put the keyword back on this one.
Yeah, definitely an interesting thing. It's not going to be super relevant because it's, like you said, only on this, and it's a rare, so it's not like a common you're going to see played in every single blue deck or anything like that. So just to make you guys aware of it, I think it also does have like the specific text. A lot of times when these mechanics are so old, a lot of times they will leave out that text.
Yeah. Yeah, we just wanted to mention it because it's not a mechanic that shows up very often, at least not in keyworded fashion.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the 10 different draftable sealed archetypes that you guys will see. This will give you guys a good idea of what to look for, maybe tell you what you want to be trying to go for as far as color pairings, what fits your play style. And the first one is white-blue. This is supposed to be themed after the Snow Queen, and it's going to have a lot to do with tapping and locking down creatures.
Yeah, one thing interesting with this set is Mark Rosewater talked about in one of his articles about the making of Wilds of Eldraine that they decided to theme all 10 color pairs, their archetypes, around specific fairy tales, and then figure out what mechanics made the most sense, and do it that way. So the Snow Queen, a lot of times people think about tapping down and lockdown. It's on a lot of cards that reference freezing, like Frost Links, Cone of Ice, I think, was a card that did that as well. Like it just fits that theme.
Which is this is a nice sort of twist from what we've been seeing lately in Azorius, which has been sort of go wide soldiers, double draw spells, make 1/1s kind of feel. So it is nice to see blue getting a little bit more of the lockdown and tempo side, blue-white, I should say. So I'm excited about this archetype. I love Azorius when it is very tempo-based.
Yeah, it is. It's been specifically referenced that this is supposed to be a tempo deck, not a control deck.
Yes. And I hate control decks, so I'm here for the tempo, so that's great. Moving on, we have the blue-black, which is supposed to be themed after Sleeping Beauty. I feel like that should be the thing that's locking things down and making them sleep, but, here we are. It's suggested that this is Fairy Tribal.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I mean, there were fairies in Sleeping Beauty, so I guess that's kind of why we have that theme, but it's a pretty straightforward deck. It's not supposed to be like a Swarm Go Wide deck. It's just supposed to be, playing fairies, getting triggers, and attacking with a couple flying fairies to win.
Yeah, I definitely saw that like in the first Modern Masters. We had like a fairy sub-theme there where, again, you're right, it wasn't about swarming. Although, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't Bitter Blossom reprinted in this set in the sheet?
It might be.
I think it actually
I think it is. I think it is.
And that's kind of swarmy if I do say so myself. But yeah, you're just going to be winning in the air here. You're going to be, controlling, locking down their cards with the blue side, countering, removal stuff, and then you're just going to beat them in the face with a very good Windrake, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got to have a blue deck that's based around flyers. In this case, it's blue-black, not blue-white.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to Rakdos. This is based off of the Pied Piper story. So you're going to be seeing a lot of sort of swarm, maybe some sacrifice stuff. This particular card is going to be making 1/1 black rat tokens. So very what I would expect to see from Rakdos.
Yeah, it's very swarmy. It has a lot of not death triggers or cards that give you a benefit for something else dying. There's some sacrifice effects, plus you have Bargain in the set that lets you sacrifice tokens. Interesting to note that the rats can't block, which is intentional just to kind of make it a more aggressive deck rather than one that's just trying to gum up the board with a lot of tokens.
Yeah, I feel like if they could block, this would be way, way too powerful.
Yeah.
This card seems fantastic. So, Pied Piper is an interesting story to have. I think storyline-wise, a lot of the cards I was seeing as I was scrolling through the set actually didn't jump out at me as oh, that's this fairy tale. Some of them were kind of obscure, so I'm excited to go through them and sort of find out what these are. This one, however, is not that. This was pretty easy to figure out. This is Little Red
Not subtle at all.
Yeah, for Gruel. Little Red Riding Hood, and she kind of looks like a badass with her little bow. This is going to be based on a sort of Gruel beatdown mid-range deck, which is very Gruel.
It's Gruel.
This is what we see all the time.
Yeah, it's your standard Gruel deck. I know they've mentioned that they like to have at least one archetype in the set that is not super synergistic. That's for less experienced players that can just be about good cards. And it unfortunately kind of often ends up being Gruel, but it certainly is this time.
Gruel Smash Face. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the Celestia. This is supposed to be based on Beauty and the Beast and is going to have a lot to do with enchantments, which, as you can see here from their signpost uncommon, enchanted creatures you control get +1/+1. And what did we learn about the new mechanic, Roll? We're going to be enchanting a lot of our creatures.
Yeah, this archetype really leans into the roles, particularly the monster and royal roles, which is perfect for Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
But it will use all of them, and roles are filtered throughout all the colors, but this is the one that gets the most benefit from using them.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love enchantments. As far as like synergies go, I've always been a big fan of Theros for that reason, and I tend to really like Celestia. So this is, I think, one of the sets or one of the archetypes I'm going to be the highest on. Unfortunately, after Lord of the Rings, I'm a little traumatized with Celestia, but here we are. Next, let's go ahead and look at the white-black Orzoff. That's my jam. Always a big Orzoff fan, and that is supposed to be based on Snow White. Who would have thought?
Yeah, it seems to be the least defined archetype to me. It's supposed to be rewarding you for your own things dying, which is kind of a little bit of black red too. But it leans into the tokens in the set, into roles, into food tokens, things that can easily go to the graveyard.
Yeah. I mean, we've been seeing that a lot with Orzoff. That actually, I feel like, is pretty defined for Orzoff in general sets. It's just like, make extra things, make things go in graveyard, get benefit. It's not like the most special archetype, but it is what Orzoff wants to be doing in most of these sets. So that makes total sense to me.
Sure.
Yeah, death rewards, I think, is a great just definition. That's what Orzoff is in the dictionary, just death reward.
Fair.
Art is beautiful. I like the little purple wispies. Let's go ahead and take a look at blue-red, the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Who can guess what blue-red is? we've never seen this before.
Yeah, so it's based after The Sorcerer's Apprentice, which is a fun movie and fun theme in general, and goes very well hand in hand with what this set wants to be doing, which is listed as spells matter and prowess.
Yeah, it's your typical instants and sorceries matter blue-red deck.
I'm always really kind of a fan of prowess cards. I'm excited to see those back.
Yeah, prowess is nice. That's a good keyword that they added. It's almost 10 years ago now.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the Golgari, the green-black. And that is going to be the Hansel and Gretel story. And we've got the Sweet Tooth Scourge here, which is fantastic. And she's stabbing the gummy worm or ripping its head off. Or she ripped its body, its head off of its body.
It's no gummy python.
So it's interesting that we have Hansel and Gretel as the black-green because this is the food synergy archetype. So this is going to be creating a ton of food, sacrificing a ton of food, and just, we had this in the last Eldraine as well, so not surprised to see that here in the Golgari set. And I think that the Sweet Tooth Scourge is like the perfect signpost flavor.
Yep, and this is the color pair that's going to have most of the candy monsters as well that we've seen in the set.
I'm excited about the candy monsters.
Yeah, they're pretty great.
All right, let's take a look at some Boros, the red-white. And this is going to be based after Cinderella. This is like one of the first ones where I'm just like, wait, Boros, Cinderella? What?
Yeah. It's a little weird.
Boros is meant to be aggressive. Again, not really what I would have thought for Cinderella, but we are going to be focusing on role tokens and equipments. Not sure how any of those have to do with Cinderella. This is the first one that I feel like is a little bit of a flavor fail.
Yeah, I mean, this is the archetype that Celebration was made for. Pretty much. I mean, it shows up elsewhere, but I don't quite get the Cinderella part. I mean, I guess the whole thing at the end is going to a party.
Yeah,
celebrating. I guess
the whole thing at the beginning is going to a party.
Yeah.
And beginning and the end are both like balls, I guess. And maybe Boros are typically humans, and they're typically like dressed up more. I don't know. It's fine. Ooh, Cinderella equips her slippers. Celador coming in clutch with the very thin connections.
Yeah.
All right, I like it. But again, Boros doing exactly what we always see Boros doing. Let's move on to Simic, the green-blue, and that is based on Jack and the Beanstalk. 100%, I can see Jack and the Beanstalk being these colors.
I mean, there's something great about the fact that Jack and the Beanstalk is the green-blue deck is a ramp deck when it was all about, unchecked growth.
Yes.
In the story. It's kind of perfect.
Yeah, Jack and the Beanstalk definitely reads Simic. Ramp definitely reads Simic. And obviously, mana value 5 and higher for the giants in Jack and the Beanstalk.
Yep.
Also going to have a lot of adventures, which, even though adventures is kind of like a generic story theme idea for the set, when I think of adventure, I do think more Jack and the Beanstalk for sure.
Well, and adventures are great for a mana value 5 or higher because you can put a small effect with a large mana costed creature.
Yeah. So overall, I think the only flavor fail that just isn't like perfect spot on archetype wise is Cinderella. And I look forward to seeing the rest of the sets kind of break down and see how they implement those stories into the different colors. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I like the how sort of pretty clear they've made the signed postcards in this set as to what they want to do. Even if the flavor fail is not great for Cinderella, it's still pretty clear that wants to be, play creatures, beat face for aggro.
Yeah. Of all of these color pairings, which is the one you're most excited about?
I like this one, the green blue Simic. And I kind of like what I've seen with the Golgari, Hansel and Gretel as well.
I think I'm going to go Hansel and Gretel, and I want Azorius Tempo to be very good. That's like one of my favorite draft archetypes, but I'm going to hedge my bets, and I really love enchantments. I want the Beauty and the Beast to be good.
Yeah, Azorius could be interesting too. I just know I'm pretty bad at playing tempo decks, so.
I'm usually pretty good at the tempo, bad when they dip into control, so we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, well, that is the end of our introduction to Wilds of Eldraine. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, and also don't forget to check out our set reviews where we go over every single card that you guys will get in the set and go over rating between 1 and 5 to help you guys get your drafts and pre-releases under control. Thank you guys again very much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye.